Hey guys, Hideous here. We're taking a look at a Blitzcrank support game. This is a normal queue game, but it is in Bronze 2 or 3. We're just going to be looking at lane phase this game, up through about 10 minutes. So let's jump in. So first thing that you do here is blind hook this brush. So there's a few things about that decision that I want to talk about. So blind hooking the brush is not necessarily a bad idea in general, but there's a better way to play this opener. There are some other things that I think you should keep in mind when you're approaching a situation like this. So the first thing is a general concept that will apply a lot of times throughout this video. So Blitzcrank brings one primary tool to a game. He has one primary asset that he brings, and that's his hook. It's a huge high impact ability. People have to respect it. It's devastating when it's landed correctly. And so what that does is it creates a zone of pressure that is about as big as the range of the hook. So the hook goes out to about here. So your zone of pressure then, when you have hook on up, when it's not on cooldown, is about this big. That's your zone of pressure. And you can use that zone of pressure. You either use it to push people around with this invisible wall, or you use it to hook people who don't know that they're inside the danger zone. But that's your threat range. When you use your hook, when it's on cooldown, your threat range reduces to this, to melee. And if you land it, that's okay. But if you don't land it, that's devastating, because now you have nothing to bring to the table for the next 20 seconds at level 1. So you reduce your melee, your threat range to this. Now, Caitlyn, there's another thing here that you guys are already winning the race to level 2 because Caitlyn and Nami were late to lane and they missed a minion. They should have realized that your hook is on cooldown because they should have been able to see it, and they should have noticed that your mana is low, but I don't think they realized that. So you should know that you already have an advantage in this lane and start looking to leverage that advantage. Knock down a couple of more, help knock down minions a little bit, which you do, and look to create a zone of pressure. So look at what happens here. Actually, let's go back a little bit. I'll show you what happens here when you use that zone of pressure. So you hook. So Nami saw you walking in. What does she immediately do? She backs off. Because she saw you coming forward. She should have realized your hook was down and she didn't need to back off, but she didn't know that. So she backs off. Again, when you start walking here, Caitlyn backs off. And look, you walk down to this brush and they both back off. Their backs are against the wall. They don't know your hook is on cooldown. So, or they don't need, because there's no reason for them to be giving this much respect. Because your hook is on cooldown. You can't do anything to them. So they're thinking that the zone of pressure is this, and they're backed up against the wall, which reduces their ability to juke your hook. If your hook was up, you could then step out of the brush and fire your hook right on this line, and it's almost guaranteed to hit. It either hits one of them, or it forces them to juke or stand still while Sivir closes. So it hits them or it cuts off their retreat. It zones them out. It puts them in a position where there is no winning. You've created a trap, and you activate your trap card. Because you are a trap springer, not a dice roller. That's the thing with all of this. And that's the other problem with this blind hook that you did earlier. When you cast a blind hook like that, you're rolling the dice. You're playing a gambler. You're hoping that they've screwed up and that they're in there. So you're hoping that they're not realizing that you might be in this brush and that they're not paying attention and that you might hook them. You're hoping they screw up. And so you're just blindly hooking. And it turns out that they didn't screw up, and so your dice roll failed. Whereas you could have completely prevented that dice roll by just warding the brush. Throw your ward in the brush, and then you know. Then you've got a hook that you can either cast or not cast, and either way, you know. You have the information, you're not a gambler, now you're a predator. You're not a... so you're a trap springer. So be careful of that mindset. It happens several times in this lane where you are waiting for an opportunity, or you're hoping that they screw up instead of creating situations where they have to screw up, where they have, where they are likely to screw up, where your hook is almost certain to hit. So you blow the hook, your mana's reduced by a chunk. It's on cooldown. You don't really have any pressure, even though they think you do, and so they're backing off anyway. The final thing about that pull that I want to mention, because again it will apply later as we're thinking about this strategy. So you throw it out right there. Even if you had hit, you would lose this trade. Sivir is over here. She can't close fast enough to trade. If you grab Nami, Caitlyn's standing here. She's in range to auto-attack you. You don't have a knock-up or any way to prevent them from doing that. They both land 2 or 3 auto-attacks. Sivir maybe lands 1. You maybe land 1. You've lost the trade. So even if you had hit, that's not a good hook. And that's an important thing to realize too, and it comes up later, is that even if you can land a hook, doesn't make it a good hook. So understand the difference between the ability to land a hook and what makes a strategically good hook. Okay, we're moving forward. You zone them out, they back off, then they realize that your hook must be down, or that even if you do hook them, they're so far away from Sivir it doesn't matter, so you probably push up a little too far there, and Caitlyn auto-attacks you, because she realizes the threat has been reduced. Okay, so that hook was okay. Probably would have been better to wait until Nami pushed up a little further. Or to walk over here and zone Caitlyn out. Like you're kind of trying to do right now. Put your hookers on cooldown so she doesn't have to care about it. Okay, Sivir's boomerang blading. And that's a situation where you can also look to capitalize because she's boomerang blading. And there, why would you hook this when you could just walk out? Look at this. So you're kind of zoning Caitlyn out, except your hook's on cooldown, so she doesn't have to care that much. And then you walk into minions, and that allows her to harass and last hit at the same time, which is not a great idea. Okay, right now, Sivir is boomerang blading and trading, and so Caitlyn wants to trade back, which means she's going to move forward. There's a minion right here. If Sivir doesn't take this minion, that means you have a decision to make. Why are you here when you could be here? Why did you spend all that time walking here, hoping that Caitlyn would screw up and walk this way on the other side of the minion, or that the stars would align and that minion would die and then you had a hook, instead of walking into the minion line on the other side of it, knowing you had a hook, or better yet, a knock-up? Sort of similar situation here. Only Caitlyn has an advantage here. Right now she's vulnerable. Like if you land that hook, she's vulnerable. Because she was on the other side of the minions. But right now, she wins this. Like you have nothing to bring to the table here. You can't land a hook because of the minions. You can only take a bad trade. So you either need to walk down here and zone, or you need to curve back around to where they have to shift their position to get between minions again. This whole situation right here, so you land a hook here, which is fine. It's a decent hook, you get some good damage. Actually, let's talk about this trade before I talk about this other thing. So you get the hook on Nami, you get a good knockup, you do some good damage, you get your Thunderlord, Sivir lands some damage, and that's where the trade should end. Right there. Trade's over. Sivir still had Boomerang up, so she could have done a little bit more damage. But you casting Exhaust there was sort of pointless. Because here you are. Nami comes into the brush. You have it warded, so you know that's as good. This is an example of what I'm talking about. You know that Nami is making a mistake here, that she doesn't realize you have a ward. You cast you're a little slow on the cast. You almost got away, but you do land it. Good damage. Good knockup. Sivir realizes it. Caitlyn wants to auto-attack this instead of trading, and she does, so you already have an advantage. Bam. Auto-attack. Thunderlords. Exhaust is like, what's going to happen with Exhaust, though? They have all their summoners. They have heal. They have double heal. Like, you're not realistically going to kill Nami. You don't have any ability to continue to prevent them from running. Your abilities are down. Sivir has used her stuff. There's no need to keep chasing this. It's over. You've got a really good trade. You already won. But no, by continuing to chase this, now you're giving the victory back to them. So you land an auto attack. Caitlyn screws up in a big way. Twice in a row. First she nets when she shouldn't, and then she flashes forward into minion wave, and you rightly realize that you have the total advantage here in killer. But this is not a good outcome of your play. This is a capitalization on her horrible play, and that's an important distinction to make. You should not have been in that situation. You should have washed your hands with the trade of Nami, knowing that that was a good trade, and then backed off and waited to rinse and repeat. Pushing forward, there was just no way that that was going to pay off. You wasted your exhaust, you ended up wasting your flash, and Sivir's heal. So you gave them back some of the advantage you created. So right now you've got a really good situation though. Caitlyn really overcommitted, and so you have a chance to really shove this in and create a minion advantage. Sivir needs to shove this as fast as she can. You need to help her shove it as fast as she can. Although doing what you're doing right now is also a good idea. Warding up is good. There's no reason to harass Nami really right now, unless she comes out really far forward. You just want to clear the wave, and you want to do damage to the turret. Because even if you land this, like again, what's going to happen if you land that? Like you pull Nami, you do some damage, but not enough damage to really change what she's going to do. She can still sit under turret and last hit and harass a little bit. Sivir was over here. She wouldn't have been able to meaningfully go. She'd have to back out of turret range and then come over and auto attack. And by the time she does that, Nami's backed off. So even if you land that, it doesn't really do anything for you. All it does is run you out of mana and reduce your ability to provide zoning pressure, because here's Caitlyn, and it'd be really nice to have mana and zoning ability right now, as we'll see in a second. I'm not sure why you guys back off this far. There's no need to back off that far. You give Caitlyn several seconds of free farming here. I'm not sure why you're back over here either. This doesn't make any sense to me. So right now, this is where you're going to wish that you had some mana left and hadn't hooked here. Because you land another good hook on Nami. Or maybe it's Caitlyn. Yeah, you land a hook on Caitlyn, but you don't have enough mana for the knockout. So she just runs away. And you guys end up kind of losing the trade, because she's able to just trade right back because her range is so much greater. So there's sort of a, again, there's sort of a problematic deal with, and I'll talk about it as we go, I guess, with the brush strategy that you're employing. You're addicted to the brush. The brush is a useful tool. You should definitely use it. But you're using it a ton. You're wheeling in here and you're waiting for them to screw up and forget that you're there, instead of creating situations where you are likely to hit them, or where they are likely to screw up, instead of just maybe they'll screw up. Again, even if you land this, that's iffy. That wasn't too terrible, but you give up a lot of mana and a little bit of health to do it, and now you don't need to be backed off this far. You only need to be backed off as outside of Caitlyn's auto attack range. Going back this far is not necessary, and it's relieving Caitlyn of pressure and making Sivir's job harder. Okay, so Sivir's doing what she can with boomerang blades. Nami has a heal though, so that's making that life difficult there a little bit. Since they have an advantage here as far as how fast they're pushing, you kind of are just in a holding pattern. Now, I'm not sure why you come up here. I'm not sure what the plan was. There may have been a plan, but I don't know what it would have been. Maybe to ward, which warding is okay, but he was going to get that anyway, and so you kind of are late to the party here because of that. So I'm not sure what the upside of that would have been. But Trundle comes in, Sivir's chasing, you come in. So this gank kind of goes nowhere. They just push him off, and you guys have an opportunity to kind of catch up in CS, or establish a bigger lead. But now what happens is Lee comes in. I'm going to talk about his percentages in a second. So Lee comes in and he goes in on Trundle. Okay, right now, best case scenario for this situation is that Trundle just gets away. There's no way you win this fight. Look at the health bars. Half, half, almost dead. 2/3, full, full. There's just no way you win this trade. It does not happen. So the best thing you can do, the win condition for this skirmish is Trundle getting away. So the second that you saw that he was getting away around his pillar, you back off, because you've won. That was the win condition. Like, overall, it's a loss because it was a Trundle lost a big trade. But as far as you're concerned, that was the win condition. That was the best case scenario in that situation. Sivir is the one that screwed up in a big way. You actually maintained a pretty good position for the most part. Sivir screwed up. She went way too far forward. Got exhausted, which, whatever. But then she took a bunch of auto attacks as well and had to flash. And now she has to back off. And you both kind of have to back off because you're not really able to do much alone. So backing off on your part is not that big of a deal. But I'm pointing out that Sivir screwed up there because that forces you guys to back off, which allows these two to push in a cannon wave, which they do before you're able to get back. And that enables Caitlyn to establish a CS lead. Okay, we're going to talk about this. So, here's the situation. They're pushing it in. Sivir has this wave she wants to farm. You hit your speed up maybe a little early. Okay, what's the situation here? Here comes Trundle. He's going to gank. You have Nami here, Caitlyn here. Who's out of position right now? It's Caitlyn. Caitlyn's out of position. Caitlyn's out of position. No! Why? No, look! Look! There, now you realize you were trying to pull Nami to you, to this point in the lane, and Caitlyn was there the whole time. Look at this. Look at this. Caitlyn screws up big time. She's screwed. She's dead. She does not survive this. You come up. Look, where are you positionally trying to pull Nami to? To you. Right here. Where is Caitlyn positionally? I mean, no, she's not melee range, but in lane, as far as getting back to her turret, she's already there. It's like you've hooked her without having to hook her. Go for Caitlyn. Do this. Do what you're doing right now, sort of, except, you know, better. Do it soon. As soon as you see that Caitlyn's out of position, immediately move to cut her off. Right now, the replay isn't letting me pause, so I'm just having to deal with slow-mo. So right now, Caitlyn screws up right here. Right here, you immediately start this angle. Run here. Run here. Run here. Ward the brush if you have a ward. Run here. When you finally do realize that Caitlyn's the better target, you run to her instead of to where she's going to be. You run to her instead of running to cut her off. You know she's going to run out of this brush. Like, that's where she has to go. And because you used your hook on Nami, it's a simple thing for her to just 90 caliber net and she's alive. And they waste their heal, but still. If you had saved your hook because you realized that Caitlyn was a bigger threat, and you walked down to here and you cut her off, you hit her 100%. She is dead. You probably just straight up cut off her retreat. And what you do is you're able to actually close with her and just knock her up. You don't even have to hook. You knock her up, and then the hook after a knock-up is dead simple. It's 100% success. You knock up and you hook, and by that time Trundle's there. Trundle's following up, Sivir's following up, and it's a dead Caitlyn. Run to cut her off and create that situation. A lot of what is happening in this lane, as we'll continue watching over the next couple of minutes, and I'll start pointing them out. Okay, that was a high percentage. That was a low percentage hook. You cast it out. If you were going to hit, Caitlyn was at max range, and she had 3 directions she could run, 3 primary directions. She could juke this way, she could juke this way, she could juke this way, and all the variations in between. The only way that hook succeeds is if she walks right into where you were throwing it. And it's max range. So that gives him the most amount of time to respond. And now you're low on mana, and it's on cooldown, and you've eliminated your zone of pressure. Okay. Moving forward. Here we go. You have a big minion advantage that you're not really pressuring. There's no way they can trade with you right now. Max range hook. All kinds of ways to juke it. Very low percentage. You're low on mana. Caitlyn's wave clearing. Sivir lines up with the wave clear for some reason. Gets a decent trade with her boomerang. You still have an opportunity to zone. Walk up. Get that. That was actually probably a decent hook right there. Max range hook. Very difficult to hit. Low percentage. She has 3 ways to juke. Moving forward. Trundle is spotted. They're going to back out. You guys should be shoving this. Shoving to punish, shoving to punish, shoving to punish. Instead of doing that, why would you walk into their jungle when you're not sure what's going on in there, when you know you could create an advantage by shoving it into the turret? Okay, you back off. You don't know where Katarina starts to roam, and so you don't know where she is, and you know Lee is around, so you back off. This is smart. You have Trundle here, so you're not completely hosed, but it is smart to play it safe. But here, you know that Katarina is now back in mid, and you know that Lee is up here because they've walked over 2 wards. So now, I'm not sure why you're here. There's no reason for you to be here warding when they're up there, because it leaves Sivir alone to where they can just body her. And they don't really press it too hard, but they could have. You could have made that same ward. And there's not really a... yeah, they're pushing, so there's not really a reason to ward that anyway, because it's going to be under your turret in a second. Max range hook, all kinds of ways to juke it, very low percentage, now you're low on mana. And you've reduced your zone of pressure. In that situation, there just wasn't a hook. You know, especially since you knew she had 90 caliber nets to hook. You just don't use it, you just don't hook. They already got away. Okay, pressuring the lane. And yeah, I think that's all I'm going to look at for this game. So, the big things that I want you to take away from this, when your hook is on cooldown, it is not a threat. When your hook is off of cooldown, it is Schrodinger's hook. It might hit, it might not. They have to respect the fact that it might hit. So you create a situation where you have that hook, you leave that hook up on cooldown as long as possible. That hook pressure of it might hit is a valuable tool. Use it. Do not use your hook and waste that tool unless you are very sure both that if you land the hook, it's going to be a better situation than having that pressure, which usually means you're going to win a big trade or get a kill. Because without the hook, you're not able to zone, and without not able to zone, you're not able to keep them off of CS, and you're not creating a gold advantage if you're not able to zone them off of CS. So you either need to kill them or hurt them enough that you can zone them without your hook, or you need to hang on to your hook. So that's thing number one. Don't blow your hook unless you are quite certain that landing it is going to be better than holding on to it. To say nothing of just bad hooks where you're going to pull somebody to you and they win the trade because they have, because it wasn't a good hook. But even if it is a decent hook and you get a little trade, but now your hook's on cooldown and the situation hasn't changed very much, in terms of you're not able to zone them off enough because they still have enough health. You can't zone them without your hook because they have, they're not afraid of you. That's not a good use of the hook. So that also, creating high percentage hooks. You have a bad habit of just casting a hook when you see a hook available. You see that you can land a hook, and so you cast the hook. Not all, or you see that you might land a hook, that there's a hook available. So like this one right here. This one lands. That's good. That's going to land 1 every 15 hooks. Maybe. And that's basically, I think that's actually your hook percentage this lane. Because you've casted a lot of hooks and you've landed. And so that hook worked, but it was extremely low percentage. And if you have full mana and you've got them up against the ropes anyway, then sure, you don't have a lot of consequences for casting at a low percentage hook. But a lot of times throughout this lane, you've casted a low percentage hook and it's cost you. Because then you're not able to actually utilize it when you could have had a high percentage hook. Compare that to the situation that I talked about with that gank when I wanted you to cut her off. I wanted you to cut Caitlyn off when when Trundle was ganking. I don't know where it is. I'm just going to show you on the lane. If you push up here and you cut off Caitlyn and you get her to here and you're actually ahead of her, then your hook percentage is 100% and it's just as devastating. When you were very early lane, when you moved down into the brush, and that even though you had your hook on cooldown, they didn't realize it, and so they backed against the wall. That was a very high percentage hook too. You walk out and they have one way to go, unless they want to take damage from Sivir. That's a very high percentage hook. They have one way to juke that hook. One direction they can go. They can't go this way unless they take damage from Sivir, so I guess they could juke the hook, but they're still going to lose the trade. They can't juke this way. They can't juke this way because of the wall. They can juke this way. Very easy to predict that. Very easy to land that hook. Most of these other hooks are like this, where they have all kinds of ways they can juke it. And then later on, and then your pressure's gone, and you can't use that pressure to herd them into a corner, to put them in a situation where that hook is going to be more likely to hit. You need to use your pressure, you need to use your positioning, and your awareness of the lane to put these people in positions where your hook is likely to hit. Wait for them to be in a position where it is likely to hit. Like right now up against the wall, Nami's got one way to go. Caitlyn has 2 ways to go. You land it there, that's good, but she could have pretty easily juked that because it's all out, it's all over the place. It wasn't quite as bad as a max range one because she had less time to react to it than she would have to a max range hook. She can't just juke it by walking backwards, so it's a higher percentage than a max range hook, but she had 2 directions she could go. Now, it's not always that you need to wait till they're up against a wall. Sometimes you can see them moving this way, or you can see them heading toward a CS. If you're very confident that they're going to walk into your hook, then yeah, that's not a high percentage hook, or low percentage hook, that's a high percentage hook. If you have a very solid reason to believe that they're going to walk into your hook. That's the same as putting them up against the wall. You have a solid reason they're going to believe they're going to walk into the hook, because they have one direction to go, and you're going to cast your hook in that direction. So hold on to your hook. Hold on to it. Use the pressure that not casting it creates, and take advantage of that pressure and just your general positioning to wait and be the predator, be the trap springer, not the gambler, not the dice roller. Don't wait for them to screw up. Don't wait for them to forget that you're there. Don't wait for them to forget that you have a hook. Put yourself in positions where it forces them into bad positions, where it forces them up against walls, where it forces them away from CS. Use that pressure, and then when they fall into your trap, when they fall into that high percentage hook location, then cast the hook. And pull them in, get the big trade, get the kill, and move on. So you guys go on to win this game, so that's good. This lane was not played horribly, given the skill levels. It really wasn't. It just could have been played a lot more dominantly. So if you gotta be a little bit more light on your trigger finger is the biggest thing here. Lighter on your trigger finger, and understand that the power that gives you. Your power is bigger than just your hook. It's the threat of the hook. Thanks for the opportunity to look at this game. I hope that this was helpful. I hope there's some things you can take away and use to improve on your future games. I appreciate the chance to work with you on this. Best of luck on the Rift.